Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Christina McNeil, and this is MB12 for Wednesday, August 8th, 2012, broadcasting from the Cable 12 studios on Robinson Road. In news tonight, some of the major employers on New Providence reveal how essential a qualified workforce is to the tourism industry. The former Minister of Education gives his take on recent national examination results. Parliamentarians debate changing laws related to spousal permits and plans to honor a former civil rights leader on Bimini. We have those stories and much more coming up tonight. Your MB12 starts right now. With so many still underperforming students leaving schools to enter the workforce, the government plans on creating career path academies to bring these students who lack basic academic skills up to speed to enter the hotel industry. But as Wal McCartney tells us in this report, entering the hotel sector with a subpar education might not be as easy as it sounds.
You're looking at an area that many people don't get to see, but it fuels the operation of the country's largest private employer. This is the Human Resources Department at Atlantis, where it's flooded with applications on a daily basis. But Atlantis, like many other employers throughout the country, has a problem. The workers that apply for these jobs are often underqualified and undereducated.
I don't think I've heard in the last 20 years any employer, no matter what industry they're in, saying, "Oh, it's easy as pie to find anyone." Any employer will tell you it's really hard to find good labor.
Atlantis Senior Vice President of Public Affairs Ed Fields said the company, which employs more than 8,000 people, has been dealing with this issue for many years, and things aren't getting much better. Atlantis receives more than 4,000 job applications every month. The company has hundreds of job categories and is often hiring, though not as abundantly since the recession. But even with the avalanche of applications, the company still has a tough time finding people ready to fill those slots.
With even limited amount of jobs that may be available, that you may have hundreds of people applying for that job, and it is very, very difficult to find people who are applying that you would say, yeah, good fit.
Phil says the problem is clear, and the data supports it. The vast majority of students leave school without the basic skills necessary to function in the workplace, let alone compete on a global scale. But Atlantis can't afford to put unqualified employees in its hotels. To that end, the company spends millions of dollars every year training staff, something Phil says has to be done.
We need for people to be able to work in a global type of environment, dealing with people from all around the world who are accustomed to a certain standard of service. And a standard of service isn't just about training someone how to make a bed or how to, check someone in. It's about their capacity, in our business specifically, to solve customers' issues. And one of the ways that you can solve a customer's issues immediately is based on how you can communicate with that customer. And that is directly tied to things like reading skills. So you would find that someone who's got good reading skills has got good communication skills. You'll find someone who has good communication skills can communicate, can listen to someone, comprehend the extent of the problem, and figure out how to solve the problem, and to communicate to that guest how they're going to go about solving the problem, or if the problem is even resolvable.
But Atlantis won't be the only big hotel game in town for long. In about 2 years, Baha Mar will open its doors and likely hire thousands of workers. Baha Mar exec Robert Sands says that not only grades will determine your success in the hotel industry. Sands says he sees some hope in the report on exam scores, and that hope is what Baha Mar is betting on.
The glass is not half empty, but half full, because a significant amount of students also did very well, C grades or above. Students from both the private and public schools. But hospitality hiring focuses not only on academics. And while those students who have the academic results would be in an advantageous position, they must be complemented with a number of other skills: a sense of hospitality, a sense of courteousness, a productive mind, a positive work ethic, and someone who wants to be in the service industry. All of these elements together will determine the type of prospective employee we will have.
However, 15% of the workforce is employed in the hotel and restaurant sector. That's more than 25,000 people, with, like we indicated, thousands more hoping to enter the sector every month. Sands said that naturally, those students who perform well academically are in the best position to find permanent work.
I send a challenge to those students who underperform to find ways to increase those skills, because they would put them at a big disadvantage in terms of the hiring community going forward.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Juan McCartney.
Well, the former education minister under the Ingram administration taking credit for the slight improvement in the overall performance of students in the 2012 national examinations. But at the same time, he's admitting there are serious deficiencies that need to be addressed in the education system that cannot be addressed because of bureaucracy. Paige McCartney reports.
Former Education Minister Senator Desmond Bannister said there are many issues perpetuating the education problem in the country. For instance, he said there are thousands of students sitting in classrooms with undiagnosed learning disabilities. And then there are other students with social challenges at home that are distracting them from their schoolwork. But he pointed out that in some areas there's a serious lack of competent and qualified teachers.
I've gone into classrooms where I've seen and this is very few occasions, but I have seen some incompetent teachers. I can't fire them, okay? Because we have unions, and we have agreements, and we have the ways that things have to be done. You have any number of other issues where that have to be dealt with, but you have a bureaucracy called the Ministry of Education and the Department of Education, which cannot just change like on a button, on a step to address them. They have to be addressed over a period of time.
But that's not the sole reason, according to Bannister, who said the Bahamas has some of the best teachers in the world. He said the issue is getting some of them who are qualified to teach those core subjects that Bahamian students continue to perform below average in, like math, English language, and the sciences. On Tuesday, we pointed out that at the BGCSE level, students earned on average an E+ in math, D average in English, and C- in sciences this year. But it's not the fault of students, according to Bannister. He said while Minister of Education, he realized the serious problem facing those core subjects. Bannister pointed to the projections for teachers graduating from the College of the Bahamas in 2010. He said only 2 were graduating with a specialty in English, only 7 with a specialty in mathematics, 5 with a specialty in biology, 0 specializing in chemistry, and 0 specializing in physics. However, he said there were 40 graduating with a specialty in primary education. He said the focus must be on developing teachers in those areas that students are failing in.
And I remember last year, the Ministry of Education was virtually forced to hire, I think, 15 religious studies teachers who we didn't need. But they were Bahamians who had gone through the College of the Bahamas, and they had graduated. They came to the ministry, and they felt that they were entitled to a job, and we felt that we ought to, as the young Bahamians, we ought to hire them. But quite frankly, we needed math teachers, we needed the English teachers, and there's nothing wrong with religious studies, but if you go now and look at how many physics teachers you have in our schools for Bahamians, you'd be shocked.
The former minister said it's very difficult getting qualified Bahamian college students to want to become teachers, and that's why the Bahamas is constantly importing teachers to instruct in those areas. Bannister agreed that the national school system is turning out students unprepared for the workforce, but said that's nothing new because he believes there's been a lot of mediocrity in education over the past 40 years.
I think over the last 40 years or so, we basically had a lot of mediocrity in education in the Bahamas, and we paid a lot of lip service to education in the Bahamas, rather than trying to look at the real problems that impact our schools. And so we've become a lot like big cities in the United States, where you have 40-some% or 50% of our children in our big inner city schools graduating, and 50% not graduating. You'll find that that's different in the Family Islands. The figures are different. You'll find that it's different in the smaller schools.
However, the former minister believes that the Ministry of Education is currently on the right track to see improvements over the long term. And Bannister said again the solution lies in the hands of parents who he believes are not concerned enough with their children's academics. For MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
Parliamentarians today debating the amendment to the Immigration Act regarding spousal permits. The proposed new permit would remove the current limitation of 5 years and would allow for an indefinite period for spousal permits in this country. It will also allow people approved for such permits to have the option to apply for citizenship. But while Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell believes that this amendment is the way forward, some opposition members say they will not support it as it may lead to marriage fraud. Charisma Robinson reports.
When it comes to the danger of marriages of convenience, Mitchell says they will ensure that the appropriate safeguards are in place to deal with any abuses of the law.
All women in the country, the foreign men are going to come in from the outside, marry all women, and then use them to get this status, and then dump them on the side. I mean, that's the crux of the argument. I suppose there might be some of that, but the fact is, a spousal permit only exists so long as the marriage subsists and so long as there is not a deed of legal separation. So if there is no marriage, the spousal permit falls away.
But opposition deputy leader Loretta Butler Turner and St. Anne's Member of Parliament Hubert Chipman are not buying it. During her contribution to the debate today, Butler Turner called the amendment ill-conceived and insisted that the government re-examine it. Chipman is convinced it would only perpetuate an already vexing situation with marriages of convenience.
Right. This is where the problem lies, Mr. Speaker. We are going to dilute our sovereignty. We are going to dilute what it is to be Bahamian. We are going to dilute it to an extent that we are not going to be able to control these floodgates, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I submit to you in this House today that this particular amendment should not go forward.
When we look at marriage of convenience, a person can come here. They have a contract. It's more like a contract. It's an agreement. Agreement where I pay you X amount of money every month, every week, or whatever, and we cohort together, share the same space. How are we going to police it, Mr. Speaker? Are we going to create another department at immigration? Are there going to be inspections, yearly, quarterly, to find out what's happening?
Opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis adds that before the government signs this amendment into law, it establishes a proper unit within the Immigration Department to deal with this issue. Mitchell insists that the government is amending the law to ensure that spouses of Bahamians have the same rights in the Bahamas as their husbands or wives. He says the introduction of this permit will also be a big financial savings for Bahamians.
In passing this act, we will remove what is a nuisance, an irritant to many, many Bahamian citizens. And we hope that the processing will move along in a smooth fashion, and that people who come and apply to the Department of Immigration, we hope, certainly I haven't heard any complaints, are treated with respect, humanely, and decorum in the service that is being offered by the department.
Meantime, Mitchell says for people already in the system, a policy decision will be taken to request holders of spousal permits to apply for extension under the new amendment. Reporting for NB12, I'm Charisma Robinson.